Let's talk about everybody's favorite character, Nier. Now, out of the four introduced in Rising, Nier was the one I was looking forward to the most. She brings some pretty interesting things to Versus. To start off with, she's the first evoker added to the game. The evokers were still relatively new when Versus first came out, but fans had been anticipating one to become playable for a while. They get their popularity from their stories all generally being darker and heavier in tone than the majority of what is in Granblue fantasy. Nier might be a bit more extreme when compared to the other evokers, but she gives off a pretty good indication of what you're getting into with the rest of them. They all exist on a scale of morally gray, with Nier sitting on the far end of one side. Each evoker has their own set of circumstances that led to them entering a pact with a primal beast with the goal of creating a new world. Each primal beast represents an arcana, with the evoker they're in a pact with representing another. Let's do a brief introduction. Nier is the Lover's Arcana in a pact with Death. Maria Theresa is the Empress, partnered with Justice. Kaim is the Fool in a pact with the Hangman. Fro is the Strength Arcana, partnered with the Devil. We have Lobelia the Magician with the Tower. Alanan is the Hierophant in a pact with the Sun. Estariola is the Hermit, partnered with Temperance. Hasiel is the High Priestess in a pact with the Moon. Gensenberger is the Chariot in a pact with the Star. And lastly, Katzelia as the Emperor, partnered with Judgment. Now, out of those, Nier felt like the obvious choice. She's always been one of the most popular evokers, and it's hard to think of a character that fits a puppet character playstyle better than Nier. If you look at it from a lore perspective, all evokers fight alongside a primal beast, so you could work any of them into the puppet character role if you really wanted to. What makes Nier unique is that she is far more reliant on death than the others are on their respective primal beast. They do a really good job of highlighting this in Versus with the way she animates. Now, you're gonna have to ignore just how insanely strong she is, but pretty much all her animations center around her either flailing for her life or cowering in fear. Two key points for me are her run, like I've seen that before, and that is the run of someone without an athletic bone in their body, and her round windscreen, where she kinda just shivers in fear until death eventually comes to comfort her. This is all just to show that Nier by herself is physically and magically unimpressive, but with death by her side, she's a threat to everybody. Now, mechanically speaking, Nier fits puppet playstyle so well that a lot of the way she works was taken straight out the mobile game. In the mobile game, she's an incredibly powerful buffer that focuses on doing tons of burst damage. Her core mechanic, the will to love, is the same as it is in Versus. It's all about managing her stacks of love's redemption. She loses one stack every turn, and just like in Versus, she has extremely powerful skills that cost additional stacks to use. There is one small difference, however. In Versus, when she runs out of stacks, she loses access to death, forcing her to fend for herself for about several seconds. But in the mobile game, she just dies as soon as her stacks hit 0. And while I'm not going to say it would be a good idea to have the puppet character just lose the round when they run out of resource, but there would probably be a lot of people complaining about Nier, and honestly she would probably still be quite strong. Another move that is taken straight out the mobile game is her insult super that you might see Nier players accidentally use every now and then. World of Death and Love prevents her from losing stacks, but in the mobile game it also provides a hefty damage buff to the team. And the last obvious reference is her super skybound art. In the mobile game, she does more damage as she gets lower in stacks. In Versus, thankfully, it's only her super skybound art that does more damage. Now, moving away from gameplay, the evokers aren't exactly the most stable bunch, but even the worst of them knows how to behave themselves around people, except for Nier. Even someone completely unfamiliar with Granblue could take one look at her and see that, hey, something's up with this cat girl. And that's a really good thing for a fighting game character. Just from looking at her in Versus, you get a decent approximation of what to expect from the rest of the evokers. Even if Nier's a bit more on the extreme side, you can tell the difference in energy and tone they're going for by comparing Nier to the rest of the cast. Because 90% of the roster is crew members, most interactions are friendly bouts between allies. That's not the case for Nier because she has no problem killing, and the other crew members are no exception. Now, this is partially due to story shenanigans in Versus, but she's also kinda just like that. Even the slightest hint of disapproval will be taken as an attack on her existence. So with that said, let's get started with the actual story. The story of Nier and the Evokers all starts on the island of Amalthea, which is the home to the crew of enforcers who are basically the Sky Police. They get their authority from their founder and leader, the Blue Knight Walfried. Their deputy and Cygame's classic Monica Weisswin is also a friend of our crew. The captain of the 4th Fleet and Walfried's daughter Alicia also travels with our crew from time to time. While our crew is resting on the island, it's attacked by a primal beast that makes itself known to be the Inquit World. Its target is 10 portraits currently in the possession of the enforcers. These portraits all contain primal beasts, later known as the Arkham series. Its goal is to use their power to create a new world at the expense of the Sky Realm. Even when fighting alongside the enforcers, the crew is unable to stop the Inquit World, but they do learn of its destination from Lyria. The primal beast approaches her in a vision, urging her to come to the island of Saphira to take part in the creation of the new world. It says since she's neither astral nor sky dweller, she has no real place in this one, and it wants her to be a part of theirs. Lyria obviously isn't going for that, so when she informs the crew of what she heard, the next course of action is set. The island of Saphira is restricted due to it being dangerous, but with Monika's authority, her and Leash is able to lead an expedition, and they want the crew to take point. It's during these expeditions that we cross paths with the different evokers. We then skip forward a little bit and the expedition is already underway. This is where we get our first interaction with Nier, sort of. While fighting our way through Saphira, the crew is attacked by a primal beast. This primal beast will change depending on which evoker you're currently trying to recruit. So in our case with Nier, it's Death. After fighting off the primal beast, the crew notices they're being watched by a young woman. However, the moment she's seen, she disappears. Our first real encounter with Nier takes place away from the expedition. While out doing odd jobs, Lyria feels the presence of something like they're being followed. That concern is cut short by the scream of a young woman. The source of the scream is Nier being attacked by a monster. The captain wastes no time in cutting it down, and once Nier is safe, Lyria notices that she gives off the same feeling as the presence that was following them. Nier nervously apologizes and explains that she was looking for a rumored crew known for taking on primal beasts, and that she needed their help in order to save the world. Assuming that they would be skeptical, Nier backs up her claim by pulling out her card, which releases darkness, swallowing up her and the crew. Nier and crew then find himself in a barren wasteland and is attacked by a primal beast, causing Nier to cower in fear and the crew to rush to her defense once again. Once the primal beast is defeated, Nier begins to explain the situation. Nier's card contains a very powerful primal beast. This location that they're in is a recreation of its memories during the war with the Astrals. It is constantly watching and rewatching this world be destroyed and is studying how to make that a reality. Once its research is done, it will be able to break its seal and be released into the real world. However, this can be prevented by someone coming into these memories and repeatedly beating the primal beast. The questions of why does Nier have the card and how does she know so much is explained away by her telling us that she's from a long line of magicians and that the card was part of her family's library. That's good enough for the crew, so they agree to work with Nier, causing her to be overjoyed to the point of tears. She also hands over the card, saying there's not much she can do with it. From here on, while the crew fights on her behalf, Nier reflects on her current situation. She's optimistic that things are finally going well for her, that she's found the acceptance she's been looking for. In fact, she's feeling so good she begins to wonder if it would be possible to bring the crew along to their new world. Death, who's currently keeping her presence hidden, doesn't seem entirely convinced, judging from her silence. But Nier is sure that this time things truly are different from everything else in her past. We then get flashbacks of Nier's past, starting with her as a child. Nier had the unfortunate circumstances of being born into a bloodline filled with many prestigious mages while being completely inept at magic herself. She was always a disappointment in the eyes of her parents, but at least in the beginning, it wasn't too bad. Despite her failures, her parents remained encouraging, not really out of faith in Nier, but in the fact that any child of theirs couldn't be completely incompetent. This changed when Nier's sister Korye was born, and Nier's parents got the prodigy they were looking for. Once it became clear that Korye had none of Nier's shortcomings, the parents' attitude took a complete 180. Now they would no longer hide their dissatisfaction with Nier. They would either ignore her or be openly hostile towards her. It gets to the point where even the servants prioritize Korye over Nier for their own well-being. As the neglect gets worse, so too does her desperation for any sort of acceptance. The stress of which causes her to develop a habit of wandering around the mansion mindlessly at night. This wandering leads to a confirmation of her worst fears. By overhearing a conversation between her parents, she learns that not only have they fully given up on her, but they also plan on disowning her as soon as she comes of age. This is a heavy blow to an already struggling Nier. With her desperation for her parents' acceptance reaching its peak, she comes up with the idea that if she masters a spell unknown to Korye, things must get better for her. In order to do so, she begins to do research in her family's ancient archive, specifically in the forbidden parts. While looking through the archive, Nier comes across a tome guarded by numerous seals, which come undone the moment she touches it. Inside the tome is information on a magic that grants control over life itself. She's initially hesitant that this might be outside of her ability, but she understands that if she's to gain her parents' approval, she must do whatever it takes. She also recognizes that magic regarding life is best practiced on the living. And with the perfect subject coming to mind, Nier is feeling positive for the first time in a while. We skip forward a few months and Nier's research is fully underway. We are greeted to the scene by a young man screaming for his life. Nier ignores the pleas of the man who once threw her away and continues to channel her magic until he's nothing but a corpse devoid of life. With the room now silent, she takes a second to admire her work before being startled by a knock at the door. She recognizes this knock to be her boyfriend coming to pay her a visit. She tidies up before answering, and by tidy up I mean stuffing the corpse into a closet. A closet which she knows has gotten full and she'll have to do something about soon. After that, the two have a fairly normal date. Any early misgivings the boyfriend had about Nier's little shack in the woods, he just assumes is normal weird mage stuff. and brushes aside in order to spend time with Nier. Things proceed smoothly until she leaves the room to go get some drinks. It is then the boyfriend hears moaning coming from a nearby closet. This causes him enough concern to check inside, and that's when he finds it. A massive pile of corpses. It currently fills the closet to the brim. This obviously freaks the man out, and while he's panicking, Nier returns. While the boyfriend is shocked, Nier tries her best to be reasonable. All she wants is that they ignore this and continue on with their date. However, the man is too shocked to offer a response, so she continues to explain. Those things in the closet are just failures. They all confessed to Nier in the past, but ended up just being mean and abandoning her. So since she's studying life magic, she used them as test subjects. And I have to add that Nier is snuggling up to him throughout all this, but it's not enough to calm him down. He accuses Nier of murder, but she fails to see the problem, as she really needs to earn the approval of her parents. Nier once again suggests that they move on and enjoy their time together, because she really doesn't understand what the issue is here. The boyfriend also refuses her advances once again and proceeds to call her a monster. That's when the problem becomes clear to Nier, that he's no different from all the junk in the closet and would throw her away despite saying that he loved her. Nier then thanks him for at least aiding in her research before showing off the fruits of her labor. All it takes is one cast for Nier to leave her former boyfriend dead on the floor. And with him taken care of, Nier is very quick to turn her attention elsewhere, since after that last test she believes she's ready to show off her ability to her parents. She wastes no time in seeking him out, and surprisingly, it goes well. While they were initially hesitant to even give Nier the time of day, they changed their tune once they saw what Nier could do. Nier showed off her magic by draining the life out of a section of their garden and channeling it into a large rotting tree, thus killing that part of the garden and reviving the tree. That was enough to earn Nier the recognition she was looking for, as her father seemed to be familiar with the magic and its source. It is something neither of the parents nor Korye have been able to pull off. Even Nier being able to utilize the tome is special, as nobody since the first in their lineage has been able to read it. It is said to require someone to abandon all rationality and be able to make any sacrifice in order to gain its power. Nier doesn't recall having to make any real sacrifices, but is willing to accept any recognition coming your way. While continuing to praise Nier, the father asks for a favor, and that is for Nier to transcribe what is in the tome, as he would like to study it himself, and Nier happily agrees. The next day, when Nier is delivering her notes on the tome, Nier's father reveals his true intentions. He is very aware of what it takes to gain access to the tome, and after Nier delivers the notes, he is ready to be done with her, completely. He accuses Nier of human experimentation, which she neither denies nor sees a problem with. This makes it clear to him that she's way too far gone. He won't let Nier continue to be a disgrace against the family, and she should be put down, but as her parent, he'll show mercy and only have her locked away forever. This shatters Nier to the point where she's unable to put up a fight when the servants come to drag her to an underground cell. All she's able to do is cry, why won't anyone love her or accept her? Months go by as Nier continues to waste away in her cell, until one day her sister Korye comes by to gloat. Unfortunately for her, Nier has become emaciated to the point where she's unable to offer any sort of reaction, verbal or non-verbal. This frustrates Korye to the point where she hits Nier with a fireball, but again, all she can do is offer a slight whimper. She continues to insult Nier, calling her trash that she can't wait to be disposed of, and eventually leaves. We look back at Nier, and while physically she's at her breaking point, mentally she's still resolved to find her acceptance. After thinking to herself in captivity for months now, Nier comes to the conclusion that it's all Korye's fault. If she wasn't around, everyone would still love her. Fueled by her hate for Korye, she tries to force herself to stand up, but collapses under her own weight. Then she notices that the ground is covered in blood. She also notices that the blood is coming from a wound caused by Korye's fireball, and that she's bleeding out fast. She does her best to cling to life, as she doesn't want to die without being loved, but she can feel herself slowly lose consciousness, so she just cries out, why won't anyone love her? It is these words that cause the card from the tome to fly out of her pocket and reveal itself to her. It springs forth a shadowy figure that seems to sympathize with Nier. She offers to accept and love Nier if Nier is able to do the same in return. She explains that because she governs death, she's never been given affection or been acknowledged by another, and begs that Nier be the one to do so. Nier sees how the figure is just like her and readily accepts, also asking that she never leaves her side or abandons Nier. With these words, a pact between them is created, and Nier finally passes out. She wakes up a little while later to Death affectionately watching over her. She finds that Death has healed all her wounds and is ready to assist her in any way she can. Their most pressing matter is to figure out why those who Nier cares for don't return any of her love. They both agree that Korye is the cause and that it would be best to get rid of her. Death has no problem slicing through the cell Nier's locked in, so they immediately make their way to confront the issue at hand. Everyone is gathered in the living room for Korye's birthday when Nier suddenly shows up, causing an uproar. Nier doesn't acknowledge any of it as she's completely tunnel vision on Korye, not hiding even an ounce of her hate for her. Nier doesn't even notice the others until her parents step in between the two, trying to protect Korye. Nier demands to know why Korye is the only one deserving of their affection, and her parents have no problem answering her. They make it clear that they only cared for her as a possible successor, however she was a disappointment. They were only encouraging in the beginning in hopes that her magical power might grow with time, but with Korye born, there was no point in waiting. Even her one and only accomplishment, learning life magic, could be done by literally anyone, without the need for human experimentation. The only real challenge was unsealing the tome. The father reiterates that she's a disgrace, and the only reason why she's been tolerated this long is because they're her parents, so they have responsibility towards her. He demands that she be locked up again, but this time if she resists, feel free to kill her. Here's a volume warning for what comes next. Nier is completely destroyed from hearing what her family truly thinks about her, and collapses to the ground, letting out a pretty raw scream.
嘘そそんな
As the servants prepare to take Nier away, Korye, who has been cowering during this whole exchange, tries to sneak in one more insult. One that Nier is not about to let slip by. And I kinda just want to let the scene play out, so here you go.
出来損ないのお姉様らしい最後ですわね。出来損ない。出来損ないはあなたたちでしょう。私はずっとあなたたちのことを信じてた。あなたたちなら私を愛してくれる。私を認めてくれる。そう信じてた。だから今まで私は頑張ってきた。あの魔導書を手に取ったのも、難しい魔法を覚えたのも、あなたたちに認めてほしかったから。写本を作ったのも、あなたたちに愛してほしかったから。なのにあなたたちは私を否定した。あなたたちも私に甘い言葉をかけて近寄ってきたあの男たちと同じ。私を愛してくれないなら、認めてくれないなら、あなたたちなんていらない。私を愛してくれないものなんて、みんな消えればいい。
And with that, Death appears, and she immediately begins to tear people apart. The servants were the first to go, barely getting a moment to react. Then were the parents. While they were still processing the sudden appearance of a primal beast, the mother was beheaded and the father torn in two. And lastly was Korye, who, between watching everyone die and having her own legs cut off, had just enough time to beg for her life before meeting her end. With the deed done, Nier and Death are the only ones left in the mansion. Death takes a moment to comfort a distraught Nier, and once Nier is calmed down a bit, Death also fills her in on the Inquit world's plan to create a new world by destroying the Sky Realm. She says if they're to be shunned by this one, they should respond in kind and use it to create one where they would be truly loved. Death expects Nier to be somewhat hesitant, but instead she's fully on board with the plan, saying that she has a complete trust in Death as her special someone, which delights Death to no end. With this, they leave the blood-soaked mansion to find a place where they could be loved. We skip forward back to the present after the crew has spent a considerable amount of time in the card fighting primal beasts. They begin to wonder how much more they have left, and they get their answer right away, when a cloud of darkness suddenly engulfs them, taking them to Nier. Nier thanks them for their hard work and announces that they are now ready to destroy the Sky Realm. The crew thinks they must have misheard something, so they give Nier a chance to explain, but she just reiterates that she and Death are here to destroy the Sky Realm. The conversation continues with the crew trying to reason with Nier to no avail. Neither side is really able to reach the other. Nier tells the crew that she wasn't trying to fool them, that her and Death are trying to save a world, just not the Sky Realm. She continues about how they aren't allied with the Inquit world, they just happen to have similar goals. But if he was to ever get in the way, even he wouldn't be able to escape death. The crew cares about Nier enough to listen to what she has to say, but at the end of the day, they can't let her continue with her plans. This leads to her claiming that they are all just like the rest and sending Death after them. The crew fights back until Death eventually backs down, who also apologizes to Nier due to her lacking the ability to make their dreams a reality. The crew once again tries to calm Nier down, but after this defeat, she's done with it all. The duo have fully given up on this world, and if they can't get rid of it, they might as well be the ones to disappear. Nier refuses all help from the crew, instead asks to be fully embraced by Death's love. Death, doing the last thing she can for her beloved, pulls Nier in for an intimate embrace before stabbing her and ending her life. Nier uses her last breath to thank Death for their time together, also for her being the one to accept her and love her. She also apologizes for no longer being able to be by her side. After all life has left Nier, the stunned crew can only watch as Death whips herself into a frenzy over the joy of being able to fully embrace her beloved, but also the pain of losing a loved one. As the dark miasma consumes Nier's corpse, Death regrets being unable to become her strength in this world before reverting back into a card, leaving the crew by themselves to wonder how things even got to this point. And that is the end of Nier's journey. On a completely unrelated note, a few months later, the crew gets hired by a town to capture a suspect. There have been reports of a figure resembling a young girl previously thought to be deceased, approaching people at night asking to be loved only to attack them afterwards. When the crew asks for more information, they are told that the figure resembles the daughters of a prestigious family of mages that used to live near the village. The family has disappeared, leaving only a mansion soaked in blood that none of the townspeople want to approach. And the daughters' names were Corrier and Nier. Upon hearing Nier's name, the crew sets out immediately to the mansion to see if they can find out some more clues about what happened here. The mansion is a grisly sight. The interior is completely caked in dried blood, but the crew continues to explore until they eventually come across what looks to be a journal that used to belong to Nier. The crew is brought to tears as they read through all the things that Nier has been through, all the things she's done, but also the mental anguish she's had to deal with on a daily basis. This is interrupted by Nier herself approaching the crew. She's initially scared off by their shocked reaction, but she comes back when they call her name. That is because she has seemingly lost all memory, including who she is and of the crew. But as the crew tries to figure out how Nier is even still alive and jog some of her memory, they are further interrupted by the town rep who hired them, storming in with some guards. Sometime after the disappearance of Nier and her family, the town became aware that Nier was the one responsible for the murders. The town rep himself is the father of one of Nier's previous victims, and now that they've confirmed that Nier is still alive, they have no intention of her leaving that way. The guardsmen prepared a fire, but unfortunately for them, this awakens the animosity in Nier, which causes her to unknowingly summon Death, whose appearance also brings back her memories. With a return, Death immediately sets out to start killing, but is stopped by the captain, who is committed to prevent any bloodshed in this situation. The crew once again tries to reason with Nier, but this time with an understanding of her circumstances and background, and it actually works well enough to cause Nier to hesitate. This gives the guardsmen an opening to shoot, but Nier is saved by the captain tackling her out of harm's way. Unfortunately, the captain takes a bullet in the process, but it's this sacrifice that finally makes it clear to Nier that the crew means her no harm. At this point, the townspeople are desperate to kill Nier, and now they are willing to shoot through the crew to do so. However, they get scared off when Death makes it clear what she's about to do to them, and they are no match for a primal beast. With the townspeople gone, the crew finally has a chance to have a real talk with Nier. They tell her while she's done some horrible things in the past that really can't be forgiven, that doesn't mean she can't make a change and find a new path in life. If she just gives up on this new world plan, and even if the path ahead might be difficult, that one day she would be able to find a place where she belongs, and the crew will be by her side the whole way. With this, Nier is finally able to understand the feelings the crew have for her, and is willing to look towards a brighter future. As for why Nier is even still alive, well, Death explains on the way back that because she's the one who killed Nier, she can bring her back as she pleases. Now, on why she brought Nier back, even she's not really sure. As much as she enjoyed letting Nier feel her full embrace, not having her beloved by her side feels just as bad. So she's just kinda stuck in a conflicted state. On one hand, this gives her an opportunity to kill Nier again, on the other, that would make her real sad. So it's just something she has to deal with. And that is that. Nier is officially a part of the crew. We do, however, get a small scene to sort of act as an epilogue to all of this. It takes place shortly after the crew has left the island with Nier. She is by herself on the deck of the Grand Cipher looking out into the night sky, when Death appears by her side to deliver some news. She lets Nier know that the deed is done. She has finished killing the people who previously attacked them, and every single living being who called that town home. Nier thanks Death for her hard work, as they have no intention of letting anybody jeopardize their newfound happiness. And to really drive home the point, the Fate episodes ends with this narration. The crew does not realize that deep down, Nier's heart is still horribly perverted. That a rabid madness continues to loom in her heart, whether or not she will one day tread a more sane path, is a fate that remains to be seen. Now that you know a little something about Nier, let's go over a few quick notes. Starting off with how Nier, out of the several hundred playable characters in the game, is easily one of the worst people to ever join the crew. She doesn't quite take the #1 spot, but the thing that separates Nier apart is that the people worse than her are generally seen and regarded as awful people. Nier, on the other hand, gets a free pass on that, and that's fully intended. The captain, Lyria, and V are consistently portrayed as naive and trusting to a fault, but things generally work out in the end. It feels like Nier is meant to be one of the few times there's a consequence for it though. Once the trio learns of her sad past, they kinda just sweep her crimes under the rug and welcome her with open arms, in a I can fix her type of way. Now Nier isn't the only crew member with blood on their hands, but from what I can recall, she's the only one to rack up a massive body count after she joins the crew. To make it worse, despite the captain's I can fix her attitude towards the end of the Fate episodes, Nier never really comes to view her past actions as wrong or changes her worldview. She just kinda makes an exception for the crew, and she only really ever hesitates on killing if it might cause them an inconvenience. The game really likes to hammer home that Nier is too far gone. But Nier isn't all bad. She once saved the life of a young girl by murdering her abusive parents who were in the process of leaving the child for dead. She also helped the previously mentioned enforcers, Monica and Leisha, resolve a hostage situation while the crew was on vacation. So yeah, she does do some good every now and then. Also, Nier's hobbies besides just murdering innocents. The main one being writing. She's not a pro or anything, she mainly writes for herself. It started when she was younger as a form of escapism, but she said it eventually grew into something she just enjoyed. As for her type of writing, she admits to heavily leaning into wish fulfillment, as she's the type to pack her work full of all her dreams and fantasies. This actually leads to a funny interaction between her and Anila, where the Divine General is trying to put it on a play for the Sheep Shrine Summer Festival. The issue is, Anila has no experience, so she goes around asking the notable writers in the crew for advice, and Nier ends up being one of those people. Unfortunately, Nier is not a playwright, so there's not much she can offer there, but Anila is able to convince Nier to show her some of her previous work, and yeah, it was way spicier than what our sheep friend was ready for. She does her best to get through it, but eventually has to put it down and inform Nier it was a bit much for her. Nier, being as normal as she can be, lets Anila know that in fact, that was the tame stuff. Her normal work has a lot more heat to it. And shortly after this exchange, the captain and friends find Anila questioning her world views. Aside from her own writing, Nier enjoys most forms of literature in general. Somewhat recently, she became a fan of the magical girl Lovely Heart Monica, who is the star character of a series of plays produced by the Enforcers as a part of their community outreach program. Nier admitted to seeing a few of their performances during her brief interaction with Monica and Leisha, much to their surprise and embarrassment. And that pretty much wraps up for Nier. I will say that there's a continuation to her story, however I'm not covering it because it's not relevant to her in verses. It also doesn't fundamentally change your character all that much, and most importantly, it's locked behind a massive grind that I don't plan on doing anytime soon. Like, it would be really difficult to overstate just how large the grind is for it. Plus, this video is already too long, so I'll end it with this. It's kinda crazy just how well the reputation Nier and Nier players have earned in verses fits with the actual character. Take that as you will.